This is a short introduction to the new series, which is an assessment of interwar art at the Royal Academy. If you want to go straight into the analysis, please check out the next video in the series, Landscape. But if you want to hear a little about the concept for the project, please listen on. There is something ephemeral about art. Even though it has a physical quality in this world, its existence is not enough to sustain it. Art's position must be constantly maintained for it to be truly alive. In fact, we live in a time where there has never been so much art around us, physically and mentally. On top of the huge inheritance given by our forefathers, there is a combination of mass media, state intervention, and internet access, making art practically ubiquitous. But just as the fish never considers the water around him, we do not consider the art we are surrounded by. A brisk walk through the streets of London to observe the locals will show man to be mere automaton, only gazing up from his phone to make his purchases. He walks past great achievements in sculpture and architecture as if it was nothing. The art exists, but is not recognised. It is meaningless to the Englishman, and worse than that, art in this day and age has fundamentally lost its power to move man. Christ, obscurating his great revelations, spoke in parables, but shouted out to man, "He that hath ears to hear, let him hear." A second's analysis on such a thought reveals to us that it is a redundancy. All men have ears, and more than that, they are listening all the time. But here's the thing. There is listening and there is listening. There is being captivated by the skillful oration of the Lord, and there is not taking it in, not being moved. One cannot help but think of the many Pharisees mentioned around Christ during his ministry. They always seemed to be close to him, yet they heard him worse than the centurion who listened of his great wonders from afar, without actually hearing him speak. So it is with us, surrounded by art, but unseen. To the man on the street I can only say to look up, to stop following the tracks of consummation and pause a while, recalling Ruskin, "He that hath eyes to see, let him see." It is with this thought in mind that I want to start to discuss the project. A question emerges from the minds of the would-be seer. How can we truly see? Clearly, glancing is not enough, looking for a second and then passing on. Sometimes in the larger galleries I'll sit down in the centre of the room and watch as people go by. You'll be surprised by the number of visual grazers, spending a split second before moving on. True sight must be intentional, thoughtful, and patient. By intentional, the best way to see is to hunt things out, to make pilgrimages to great art with the purpose of witnessing. I dare say it's good to be out and about and to see something nice that captures the eye, but in those circumstances you're entrapped to something else or with someone else. Ultimately, you're just a visual tourist. The thoughtful viewer tries to understand work. He scans it, attacks it. He references the work mentally, visually places it next to the other great work, but most of all asks the question, what am I seeing? Patience is the virtue most infrequent in modernity. In the context of art, it is, however, essential. If one is not initially captivated by the work, is the work bad? Well, it might be. Most people tend to greet things with indifference, a bemused curiosity, but we must overcome these urges to have patience with work. Only through patience will beauty truly be discovered. Now we know how to see. Where should we start? In my mind, remembrance is hugely important. It helps anchor ourselves to the past, to humble ourselves in the present, and to begin to dream of a new future. Even as a negative, it's important. It's rather passé to say now, but being versed in the mental cesspit that is the contemporary art world would no doubt fuel a fire in the heart of any true-blooded artist. One of the worst things a people can do is to lose memory and to lose taste, both of which are surprisingly easy to do. So let us start to remember, to tell that great story again, even if it has been said by better men before, to say it and understand it. In the past, it seemed that there were cycles of artistic reflection. the pattern being one generation looking to the recent past with disdain, ultimately reacting against it, before the next pulls back towards it. In most recent history, I think of the post-World War II period, with the 50s and 60s wanting to liquidate all elements of empire and Victoriana. But by the time we reach the 70s, the mood had changed, and we reach a place of cultural reaction. There is, for example, great admirations of artists like the PRB. Victorian medievalism is rampant in contemporary works, and the secessionist movement is assessed in a new context. This age we are in is unlike any before, however. It is blank. It neither loves nor hates, merely existing. For those of us who wish to carry the torch of artistry, we must begin by addressing the recent past. This process of renewal seems to be broken, with huge gaps in our collective memory. The 19th century is partially documented, with a large slant towards the PRB, but it is in the 20th century I find the most egregious, purposeful overlooking of art. Speak to any art teacher today, and they will say that art in the 20th century begins with the Cubist and Dada, is fermented in Britain with Moore and Hepworth, and culminates in the glorious reign of contemporary. This is simply not the case. The real story of British early modernism is, on the whole, forgotten about, practically swept under the carpet. And it is this period, the interwar period, I want to look at. A few pieces from this time will be familiar to people, but most of them revolve around the Great War. I remember myself seeing the occasional piece during my GCSE history. Even here, the pieces are reduced to sources, and the artist becomes strange in-between figures, named the war artist, a type of picture journalist. To counter this, I want to look at the interwar period through the view of the mainstream, to what the establishment was interested in and why. To do that, I focused on the publication that the Royal Academy released yearly to showcase the best of the summer show, known as the Royal Academy Illustrated. This will serve as the basis for these streams. The format of these streams will be simple, to look through each year in turn and talk through the art. In each year I've tried to go through and highlight the best works. Now, I'm not talking about technical ability or raw quality, which is always very high, but based on a few specific factors. Novelty. Novelty is the double-edged blade, which when relied upon too much can be disastrous. However, we have to recognise works which stand out from the crowd. Sometimes they mark a move in artistic direction, other times they are one-offs, which should be highlighted for their own right, but ultimately are like fireworks flame, illuminating, then dissipating. Zeitgeist. These are works which sum up the time. Looking back gives us advantage. I can see decades of work in an instant, but I'm still the outsider. Based on my not negligible knowledge of the time, and the ability to identify these broader trends, I've tried to pull out works that represent certain forces or movements in this age. Spread. Many artists have strong periods, where in one year they will have 3 to 4 good works. In these cases, I've tried to select only 1 or 2 to ensure we have a good spread of works, while not fair canonically and dangerously close to that cursed E-word quality. This analysis must be about broad strokes, not mere pedantic categorization. The same is true for subject. I recognise my own bias towards sculpting and mythic genre paintings, and I've tried to push myself to get a good range of subjects each year. However, the works do ebb and flow. Capture. Most of all, when researching in this way, it's often works that capture you instantly that take preference. Now, of course, many excellent works require minutes if not hours to truly appreciate them. However, when dealing with the raw volume of works, this will have to do. One factor is that all the illustration books are in black and white. In some ways, this is useful for this method, as colour is often the most captivating factor, a power neutralised. Significance. As I mentioned, almost all the works over the years are good. There is nothing downright bad, although the occasional hyper-sentimental pieces cause me to convulse a little. This is no doubt due to us being children of winter. Good is not good enough. The works must stand out from amongst their peers in the year, being significant, not just for the artist, but for the very age they are from. Now, let us turn to the works, and I can only hope you enjoy the series.